We're about to change the transmission fluid on the 2013 G37X. This thing takes about 5 quarts, and it's recommended to change them at 70,000 miles. I'm a little over on this one, it's 73, going on 74,000 miles. So I'm going to drain this out and take a look at what the fluid looks like. Now, this is the recommended fluid for this car. I got it from the dealership. Got a transfer pump. These things, I paid about $6, $7 for this. They're cheap enough. And we need a 19 socket to remove the drain plug, and a 30T for, they actually use this to remove the plug that you will test the fluid through, and you also fill this through that same hole. I will show you them in a minute. I have plenty of these pans here for draining oil, but I prefer to use something clean. So I get that's clean, but you can't really see the bottom of it because it's dark. With this here, I can see it, the debris, if there's any debris, really easily. So I use a baking pan, and up here is the drain plug. That's a 19mm socket. We'll fit that, or a wrench. And right here, this plug right here, that's where the third torque will fit in right here. Now, I had a problem. I tried this a little earlier. I had a problem with that because apparently where that aluminum fit is stripped. So I had to use my air chisel gun on the edge of this to start it moving. I wouldn't recommend that unless you're very skillful with using that, else you might slip and put a hole in the pan. But if you run into a problem like that, you have to figure out a way to get this plug out. So that should be loose enough for me to turn it now. So I'm going to try with the T30. Okay, and that will come out. Now, over here, I'm getting ready to loosen that with the 19mm socket. That wasn't that tight. It went pretty easily. Now I will hold the pan up to here, because if you leave it on the floor, if you have the car this high up and you leave it on the floor, it will splash all over the place. So we'll start here until I get some fluid in. Most people, I guess, if you don't have a lift, will do it on jack stands. You need the car level. You need the fluid car warmed up, so drive it around for a little bit, and then you can start draining the fluid out. This is a little darker than I hoped it would be. So I'm not just going to change the fluid. I will also drop the pan so I can check and see if there's any debris laying in the bottom of the transmission pan. But make sure you loosen the little one I showed you earlier. Make sure you can get that free before you drain your fluid. If you can't, then you have a problem with refilling it. While it's draining, I'm gonna go ahead and take this plug out. Nothing should come out of here. If it does, it would just be a little bit. Okay, there you go, not a drop. These 10mm screws is what hold on this pan. There's 20, I believe 24 of them. So in cracking them loose, I can tell this thing is not more than 5 to 8 pounds torque on these, because right now I can do it with one hand. So you crack all of them loose and then take the pan off. That one is a little hard to get to right here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this harness. To give me more clearance. Then I can get to this. I'll have to do the one on the other side too. There are two screws you will have to use a 10mm wrench to loosen. This one right up in here, because of this bracket, can't get the socket and the extension up in here. Now if you have a swivel tin or a swivel set up, you can use that. But using the wrench, you can go in right up top here and break it loose. All right. Once you get it loose enough, you can stick your finger up and down and loosen it. Okay, now with all the screws out except two, I left one in right here and one over here, just to hold the pan off. So if it came loose, it won't drop down to the floor. Now this pan moved on its own weight, but sometimes you might need to tap the side of the pan. I do not advise using a screwdriver or anything metallic to pry in between the pan and the transmission casing. What I will do is take the butt end, the handle of a hammer, preferably something with rubber or a mallet. See how it drops down? Once that is down, can go ahead and remove these two screws, but balance it, because there may be a little bit of fluid still trapped in the pan. You don't want that all over you or all over your floor. You don't need to create any more work than you have to. Bring it down evenly. Whoops, there you go. It's the that little metal piece that holds the harness. The O2 harness is still hanging on to it on the other side. There you go, it's free now. You see what I mean? I just got a little bit on my hands. Since I used to play soccer, my feet are pretty quick. Got them out of the way. Okay, this is what inside the pan look like, and if you can see, it's not dirty, it's not gritty. You can see the bottom of the pan pretty clearly. There are two magnets that track any metallic debris to keep it from floating through the rest of the transmission and tearing things out. As parts wear, the metal will track it, the magnet. Now, the fluid will usually get dark due to wear and tear of the clutches. All right, so because I don't see too much debris here, there's hardly anything much on the magnet, I'm pretty satisfied with going ahead with this job. Okay, now right here is the drain plug. Up here is where you're gonna fill it up through from the bottom. And as you can see, this little tube sticking out. As the fluid fills up through here, and what you will have to do is pull the plug out, the fill line out quickly with the engine running, right? Pull it out quickly and then put the plug on and then let it warm up. I said with the engine running because this pan will not hold 5 quarts. With your engine running, before you move your filler, that will suck some of the fluid through the transmission into the torque converter, and the height of this fluid should be right about at the top of this. So once you have brought the temperature of the fluid up to where it should be, you will use a temperature gauge. Should have an infrared around here somewhere. You will use one of these or something similar on the bottom of the pan to get the temperature of it. And once you're satisfied with that, you remove the plug, and then it will drain down until the fluid gets to the top of this. Put the plug on. When it starts dripping, instead of a steady stream, you put your plug back on, then you'll be sure you have the correct amount in there. So in my view, there is no need to weigh the fluid because you're working by volume anyway, right? You put your 5 quarts in, any excess will drain out. On some cars, the filter of the screen should be replaced. On these particular cars, you don't really need to. I talked to the dealership about it and say they don't have a serviceable filter. As you can look up in here, that's a metallic screen, and that's pretty clean. That is very clean. So I don't have to even touch that part of it. And don't do what I did, move the pan, my drain pan, before I took this down. So as a result, I had to put a lot of oil dryer on the floor to sop up that stuff. This is the new gasket. I bought this from the dealership just to make sure I got the right thing and the right type material. And I'm gonna take the old one off. I checked to make sure it was correct before removing the old one. Because I will not have time to run and get the correct one. Right, old one is out of the way, and I'll finish cleaning the pan. Make sure it's nice and clean. I like to do things as they were done originally, as close to as it was done originally. So I don't use all the sealant and all that stuff. Because I found over the years, if you get the right stuff, it will fit together the way it was meant to fit. If you notice, I've removed the 2 magnets. I took them off and cleaned all the debris off of them. Set them right back in place. Okay, now I'm gonna set the gasket on here and we'll be ready to go back up after I wipe up the bottom of the transmission where the gasket gonna make up to. Make sure that's nice and clean also. Wipe off this surface. Yeah, it's nice and clean. It wouldn't really affect it, but unless there's some debris, piece of the old gasket sitting on there, but the gasket came off in one piece. Everything feels good. Nice and clean. Watch it while you're under here, because you still get a couple of drips of transmission fluid. So don't go under there with your mouth open or your eyes wide open underneath it. I'm starting off with 2 screws, one on each side. Run the screw through the gasket. The gasket will move. Try and hold it in place as best as you can. Okay. One screw is started. Go over the other side. Line everything up. And somehow it's not mating. There you go. And put the other screw in kind of opposite the first one. Okay, the 2 screws are in place, one over here and one over here. So now I'm going to run them up, just snug, finger tight, not too tight. As soon as you feel a little resistance, stop and take the other one up. Stop again. Yeah, this is still, loose. You can move it around. But I want to make sure I get all of them in there, through the pan, through the gasket, into the casing, before I tighten anything else up. You need to go, say, about 3 turns. That would tell you whether you're crossing the thread or not. If we're going 3 turns easily, you're good to go. Good. There are 2 of these brackets. These brackets hold up the oxygen sensor cable to keep them out of the way. It kind of snaps right in like this. Okay, but I'm going to put this bracket on. The other side is already on. I'm going to put this up, run the screw through it, and then I will go ahead and around the pan and tighten up everything. I have already tightened the drain plug. This is something I usually do as soon as before I take the pan down. When everything is drained out, I'll put the drain plug back on and tighten it up, just to make sure. That'll be an expensive repair if you forget to tighten that up.